All right. Well, we have Cathal Nally, uh, director of Be Good or Be Gone, which everyone has now just watched. I have to tell you, I love this film. I thought, when you're watching hundreds of films for a film festival, you see all kinds of features. You see features that have the art house university project vibe and all sorts of things. And yours really right from the get go. I felt like I was just really almost honored that you submitted it to Sherman Oaks Film Festival because it's such a well-made film. Your actors are wonderful right off the bat when they get out of prison, and there's such a good team. Your two actors, Steve and Weed, are so charming and charismatic that I was just hooked right away. And honestly, if you had told me that this film came from a large studio in in Ireland and was the a big film. It just had that feel to me. It felt like just like a really well made professional drama about small time criminals. And
Yeah, I mean, like that's what you wanted to do with the movie. I mean, we were a long time trying to get the film made. We weren't connected to any studio in Ireland. It's completely independently made. Um, I became attached to the film about 5 years ago, and it was the actor that played the character of Weed that brought me into it because I knew him many years before from theatre acting in various different kind of venues in Dublin, in Ireland, and but we never worked together. And he sent me the script, and he said, "Look, there's this guy I know. He's trying to get a film off the ground. Would you take a look at it? And maybe you'd be interested." And I had done several short films prior to this, but I'd never done a feature. So this would have been my first feature, if you know what I mean. And I had a bit of a name in Dublin amongst filmmakers for making short films and winning awards, and we did some international kind of things here and there. But I was looking for a new feature film, and when I got the script, I looked at it and I said to myself, "Okay, this is interesting. Story's a little bit unusual. It was a little messy in places when I got the first script." And I looked at it, but I thought it's a very character driven script. When I read the dialogue, it was very original in terms of how it was written in regards to how people live in Dublin, in regards to how people speak in that city, if you get me. I'm not originally from there. I'm originally from the middle of Ireland and all that kind of thing, different place. But I lived in Dublin for many years, and I always wanted to make something that was set in that place. It, from an American viewpoint, it would be like somebody living in somewhere in Indiana, but wanting to make a movie set in New York or set in, say, that kind of feeling, somewhere in an urban city, miles away from where they originally were from. And I thought this is good because I lived there for about 15 years, and the dialogue actually when I was reading it and the way the characters read off the page, I thought this is very authentic, which was unusual because it's hard to find that. It's hard to find a script in Ireland that comes from a working class background that reads the same as working class people. And I thought to myself, okay, there's an authenticity there. I'm interested. I'll meet the guys and see where we go. That was 5 years ago, and here we are 5 years later, and the film is made and it's gone through the festival circuit, and it's still going through the festival circuit, and I'm happy we actually got to make it. But I'm happy that we got the attention that it got, and I'm amazed it's actually done as well as it has done in America. Because prior to yourselves, we had it in Garden State back in just literally as lockdown was happening around the world. We got into the Garden State, and we won the best international feature there. And for us, that was our first film festival, not just in America, in the world. That was our world premiere, and we were okay. we had the flights booked, everything got locked down, we couldn't go over, and we thought, okay, fine. We didn't, it's not going to happen. And then the festival occurred, and then we got the award at the end, and we were all shocked. We were just like, we're just, a small independent film from Ireland, but we got this kind of attention. And I think a lot of it has to say, like you said, it has a lot to do with the characters and how people connected with the characters, and they feel very real and they feel very authentic. And that seems to be what makes the film kind of work. Because we in Ireland, we've had a few festivals here in Ireland, but it seems to travel outside of Ireland even more so, which we thought was a bit unusual initially because of the Dublin kind of lingo, or if you know what I mean, that the way the people speak in Dublin, and it's very hard to pick up the accent and all that kind of thing, and to understand it, and you know. But no, that's why I took on the film, because of that authenticity, if you know what I mean, and they seemed very real people. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, actually, authenticity probably would have been a word I would have gotten around to eventually. And I have to say, even though obviously I have no idea the difference between the Dublin accent and the vernacular commonly
Mm.
used there and anywhere else in Ireland, I know regionally there's great differences. But yeah, that authenticity came through. And I have to say, just like I think everything, really quickly, I was picking up everything. And you know what you do to me, to former, other English speakers, is all of a sudden every word in my head is in that accent, and it's like your characters are talking in my head after I watch it because it's so lyrical and compelling. And yeah, their performances also. It's interesting that it was so authentic to you on the page, because then the performances are just wonderfully authentic too.
Yeah, I mean, Les, who played the lead character in the film, he wrote the script with another writer that he met in Dublin, and the guy he's in his 60s now. He'd never really written many scripts. He was originally like a head chef in many kind of restaurants, like kind of upscale kind of restaurants in Dublin throughout the years. And then when he kind of retired, he went into writing screenplays, and he just happened to meet Les, who played the character of Steve in the film, and the two of them got together, and they just started writing it together. Les was more kind of like structural based in terms of story, um, whereas Mr. Murphy was more like Paul Murphy was more like he was more about the like dialogue. He knew these people, if you know what I mean. He knew how they talked, how they interacted with each other. So Paul was doing that all the time. So by the time it got to me, when I read it, I thought, okay, there's some structural issues here and there with the story, because they were trying to get the film made for like 7 years, and they went through various they went through a lot of different production companies over the years before they got to me. So they were going around from 2008 until 2015 until they got to me, and that's when I thought, oh, I looked at the script and I said, hold on a second, let me take a look at it. And what was really funny about it was I had done rewrites on the script for 3 months before we done the shoot, and like a lot of rewriting and stuff like that, structural wise. But by the time it was finished and we went into production, after we'd finished the movie, this is only about a year ago. Everything is done, after 4 years of production and post production and everything. Les turns around to me and he says, "Oh yeah, I found actually one of the original drafts of the script." I was like, "Oh yeah, oh yeah." It's very similar to the film that we just finished. And I was like, "Really? you you could have just given me this? I didn't have to work on it for 3 months." But that's what working with Les is like, And what I like working with those guys is just the way they work as well. I mean, it's very fluid. Um, Even working with the actors, because when I came in, Les had an idea of a lot of the actors he wanted to cast, and I had an idea of some of the other actors that I wanted to cast, and we kind of married them together, and we were working in the room together, like say about 3 weeks before we started shooting, And it was just great, just being able to sit down and work through all the scenes together and go, oh, you're doing this and you're doing that and everything. It was just, so I knew just before we started shooting, I knew this was going to work. And it was a tough shoot, in fairness, because we were shooting in January in Ireland, which is incredibly cold, but that's when we shot it. And we had to do it over like 2 years. So we shot January 2016, and again we did another week in January 2017, and then we finally finished the film production wise for one more week. We did like 2 more days of shooting in March of 2018, and then the production was done. Yeah, so it was spread over time, but a lot of that had to do with funding because we didn't have, in Ireland you have what's called the film board, or Screen Ireland, and they back films and stuff. We had none of that. This was entirely independently made. There was no funding body. There was no studio. Nothing was behind it. We did this ourselves, and that's why it took so long. Yeah,
And that's why you just shot for 1 month and then
yeah.
took a break. It wasn't that you were matching that the stars in the sky to the following year. You actually,
No, yeah, it
yeah.
was it was like we when we shot the first 3 weeks, and we like most of the production was shot the first year, which is 2016, and we we just basically the budget was gone. But when I knew the budget was leaving, and a lot of the guys I'm working with were first time filmmakers, cinematographer, not cinematographers. He'd done a few movies, but a lot of the other crew were first time guys. A lot of the actors were theater guys and done some movies. They weren't they weren't guys that were used to working from film to film to film. And it was my first feature, but I knew that, and I was looking at going, right, we're going to run out of money. And my first assistant director had been working in the business in Ireland for about 30 years. He was incredibly experienced, and we were lucky to have him. And he just turned around to me and he was saying, look, this is what's going to happen. And I said, okay, right. I said, look, if that's what's going to happen, let's get all the small actors done first. Let's get all that done and get as much as we can done first. So when we do go back to reshoot, we're just reshooting with the two principal leads. So the following year, when we had more money, we were just shooting with the principal leads, if you get me. So like we had no continuity problems or any of those kind of errors or any of that kind of thing. And if there were, we just did it. We just had to like build a set or go back to the set and find it or did it. And we just did it. So when you look at the film, there's a lot of places where I can point out, looking at the movie, going, "Yeah, see that scene there? Yeah, yeah, we did that a year later. See that scene there? Yeah, we did that 2 years later, or stuff like that. That nobody would notice. They would just not notice. So we got away with a lot, but we knew what we were doing when we were doing it. If you get me.
Yeah,
So
no, that's a
yeah.
brilliant solution to
Mm.
just when you know you're not going to get it all done at once, do all the
Oh,
stuff with multiple characters. And yeah, and then you
mm.
just had two actors to make their hair match and clothes just
Because
flip
we had
simply.
like it's a small film, it's a small independent movie, but it did have a cast of 20. So the idea was to get as many of them done in those 3 weeks. So we went back to shoot for another week. We had the two leads and maybe a few scenes of the other guys, and that was it. So we didn't have any real issues. When it came to the post issues, we had like I work with the same composer for the last 20 or not 20 years, last 11 years, and he's based in the US, and he's done all my short films, and he comes over to Ireland, and we've had a great connection. So when I sent it to him, his name is Joe Conlon, and he looked at the film. He was dying to get stuck into it. He was dying to get stuck into it before I even sent it to him. And it's all like this business is all about connections and meeting people and building relationships and stuff like that. So it's what I mean, like if people believe in the project that you have, and they believe in the subject that you have, and they believe in your film, they'll get behind you, and they will. So we were lucky in that respect that we knew what we were doing and we had a good script. I wouldn't take on a good script if I didn't think it was any good, you know. And at the same time, I knew this was a small budget drama movie, you know. It's not, you know, it's not a big budget horror. It's not a big budget kind of comedy or science fiction film or anything like that. It's a small budget kind of film. It's a kitchen sink drama. And I thought to myself, well, if I'm going to do this, I will do it as authentic as I possibly can and get it done the right way. You know, if you know what I mean. And yeah, and that's what it is. Like, so I'm very pleased with what we turned out with, but I'm very pleased with what also how we did with the festival circuit. And I can't believe, you know, I'm really happy we got into your festival, because that's when we found out we got into your festival. I thought that's fantastic. That's amazing. You know what I mean? That is absolutely amazing. That is definitely the most prestigious festival I think we've gotten into so far as the Sherman Oaks. I mean, that's amazing. You know, and I think you guys will have like what, 8 films in your narrative section, and to be part of that is fantastic. You know, so thank you very much. You know,
It's
thank you.
well, thank you. That's very flattering. But I have to say, we yeah, there's 8 narrative feature films, and yeah, it's just solely based on quality, and you made a film of quality. And I'm actually, you mentioned relationships, and
Mm,
clearly one of the reasons I think something that helped you is that, you know, you were brought in by an actor, and that actor, you know, a series of relationships brought this team together, so everyone's heart was in the right place. And that really, you know, I gave it a second viewing last night. um I like to, what I, you know, before we talk, I like to watch it a second time, so I make my girlfriend watch it with me. And I knew she'd get a kick out of it. uh you know,
it does actually go down
because
very
the
well.
female characters are really good.
It
Yeah,
does.
for
It
a
does.
film that's
Yeah.
very masculine and very centered
Mm,
around thugs and, you know,
mm.
the mustachioed crime boss and this and that, but the female characters are strong, and they're not bowled over by the men, which I thought was a great move.
That was one of the things, was that when I got the script first, and the character, um, D, that's played by Jenny Lee Masterson. She does kind of roll over in the original, one of the original drafts. She rolls over very fast, and I sat down and I said to Les, no, no. I said, no, you can't do that. He said, what do you mean? No, no, no. I said, no, she has to, no, no, no. That's too easy. So we have to change that. So just little things like that, like, because there is not a lot of female characters in the film, and she's one of very few. Um, but I said, no, we have to make her character a lot more stronger than that. You can't do that to her. That's the way we need to do this. And he said, okay, fine. And he went off and he rewrote it, and he changed it, and then I looked at it and changed it again and all that kind of thing. But but it's correct. I mean, I think it was the right way to do it, because otherwise it just makes it very lame. You know, it makes film very predictable and everything, and it doesn't really work. So, I mean, why? Like, so the guy comes out of prison, he meets his, you know, his partner, and he says, "Oh, I'm going to change," and then she says, "Yeah, that's fine," you know. But she didn't, like, you know, she didn't say that in the script, but it was pretty much that. It was like, "Yeah, it's grand. Don't worry, we'll get back together, and it's fine." And I was like, "No, that's wrong. You know, that's to change."
Yeah,
But
come in, play with your
little
daughter.
things like that.
Everything's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Good instincts. Well, and it's great that he listened, and it's great that you know, the five.
Mm.
So after you came on, it took 5 years, but that was fast compared to the 7 years before. So
Yeah, well, they were, before they met me. You see, the thing was, they were meeting different production companies, and they were trying to turn it into a kind of a gangster movie. So you had like gangster characters showing up all over the place. So when it came to me and I was reading the script, I was like, "Well, who's this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy? What the hell have they got to do with anything?" Essentially, it's a redemption story about a guy coming out of prison, and he's trying to He's trying to change his life and reconnect with his partner and his child. And the other guy is got this kind of unusual kind of subplot where he's trying to, like, you know, be a fashion designer and everything, and that adds a lot of comedy to it. But that's great. We'll keep all that. But why are all these extra gangster characters involved? It just didn't make any sense, and they weren't in the original draft, and they weren't in the original idea of the film. But because they were meeting different producers, they wanted to commercialize it and turn it into something that it wasn't, and it just ended up, you know, just got silly, if you know what I mean.
I know
So,
exactly
but
what
what
you
I,
mean. There's somebody, some idiot wanted to
hmm,
try to make it more like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking
yes,
Barrels.
exactly,
They were going after
exactly, yeah,
something that had worked before instead of letting it be what it should be.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
well, I regret to say I actually probably have to wrap up on the student side,
Hmm.
so because we're at 25 minutes already. But is there anyone you didn't get to mention that that you maybe should?
Hmm. There's a lot of people I didn't get to mention, but no, I would like to say just thank you very much for, you know, allowing us into your film festival, and it's great that we got into it, especially during the COVID. And no, everyone did such a wonderful kind of job on the film, and a wonderful work and everything, from Les and Declan, all the cast and crew, to Joe and all the other producers. I mean, it's just a pleasure. This whole thing is a pleasure, and thank you very much for allowing me to have a chat with you about this, um, before, you know, you screen the film. And I know that this is directly after the movie and everything, which is great. And thank you for everybody who's about to watch the film, and I hope you enjoyed it. That's all I have to say.
Excellent, and thank you for making such a wonderful film. You know, there's, believe me, if you watched 100 features in the last 3 months, independent features, and you ended up with 8 good ones, we really appreciate the good ones. So thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Keep up the wonderful work. I look forward to more from you. And
Thank you, sir. It is a pleasure. Thank you so much.
yeah, pleasure to meet you. All right, I will.